Good morning, guys. Today we're going to be reading Ruby's Wish, and it is by Sharon Yim Bridges. If it's by her, what is she? Good. So if it's by her, she's the author. And what does the author do? Good. The author writes the words. It is illustrated by Sophie Blackall. If it's illustrated by her, what did Sophie do? Good. She drew the pictures. Okay. And then what page is this? Great, this is our title page, Ruby's Wish. Ooh, and another title page, Ruby's Wish. If you walk down a certain road in a certain city in China, past the pet market with its yellow and green rice birds hopping in their bamboo cages, and the goldfish and the terrapins in their porcelain bowls, you will come to a block of houses, 5 houses wide and 7 houses deep. Many families live here now, and the buildings are brown with age and dirt. But if you look closely, you will see that, once upon a time, this was all one house, the magnificent home of one family. The house was built by an old man who returned from the Gold Mountain. That was what the Chinese called California. That's where we live. That was what the Chinese called California, when many men left to join the gold rush there, and few came back. But as I said, this man did come back, and he came back very rich. And he did what rich men did in old China. He married many wives. His wives had many sons, and these sons also had many wives. So at one time, the house was filled with shrieks and laughter of over 100 children. Amongst these children was a little girl that everyone called Ruby because she loved the color red. In China, red is the color of celebration. On New Year's Day, children receive red envelopes full of good luck money. Brides wear red on their wedding days, but Ruby insisted on wearing red every day. Even when her mother made her wear somber colors like all her other cousins, Ruby would tie up her jet black hair with red ribbons. Because he had so many grandchildren, Ruby's grandfather hired a teacher to come to the house. Any grandchild who wanted to learn could join the classes. This was unusual in China in those days, when most girls were never taught to read or write. Is that fair that girls couldn't learn to read or write? No, everyone deserves to learn. Whenever the weather was fine, classes were held in the garden. The windows of Ruby's grandfather's office opened onto that garden. Often he would rise from his desk to gaze out of the windows at his grandchildren. One day, Ruby's grandfather looked down from his window to see the high white wall of the garden plastered with calligraphy. Calligraphy is a very beautiful way of writing. His grandchildren had been practicing their handwriting. Ruby's grandfather laughed to see that many had smudged ink on their hands and faces. Then he noticed a sheet that was more beautiful than the rest. Which of his grandchildren had produced such wonderful calligraphy? Down in the garden, the teacher was praising Ruby. Her ears were turning as bright red as her jacket. But if Ruby was doing as well as her boy cousins in her studies, she had to work much harder. When the boys had finished their studies for the day, they were free to play, but the girls had to learn about cooking and keeping house. In fact, as far as their mothers were concerned, these were the only things girls had to learn. One by one, the girls stopped going to classes, all except Ruby. She would catch up on her embroidery at night. Many nights, her candle flickered long after everyone else had gone to bed. So way back when, now a lot of girls have jobs. Like they can be really important people, they can own companies, they can be in charge of things, but a lot of time before that all happened, it was really unpopular for women to have jobs. A lot of the things women did was they would stay at home and take care of the kids and clean. But now we've learned that women can do everything. So they can also have jobs. But this was talking about way back when, before women were allowed to do all of this stuff. And Ruby wanted to do everything. Boys used to be able to work and be in charge, and Ruby wanted to do all of that too. One by one, the girls stopped coming to class, all except Ruby. She would catch up on her embroidery at night. Many nights her candle flickered long after everyone else had gone to bed. One day, the children were asked to write a poem. Ruby wrote, "Alas, bad luck to be born a girl. Worse luck to be born in this house where only boys are cared for." See, so Ruby wants to be able to do everything that the boys can do. Ruby's teacher was very impressed by the poem. He showed it to Ruby's grandfather. Ruby's grandfather was also impressed, but he was worried about what the poem said. He summoned Ruby to his office. Ruby found her grandfather sitting in his chair, her poem spread open on his desk. "Did you write this poem?" asked Ruby's grandfather. "Yes, I did, grandfather," answered Ruby. "Do you really think that in this house we only care for boys?" "Oh, no, grandfather," said Ruby, very sorry that she had upset him. "You take good care of all of us, and for that we are grateful." "Little Ruby," her grandfather said gently, "I would really like to know why you wrote this poem. How are the boys better looked after?" Okay, so I want us to predict. And remember, when we predict, we're going to guess what happens in the rest of the story. So I want you to predict. What do you think the grandfather is going to do? Do you think he is going to be really mad at Ruby that she thinks the boys are better looked after? Or do you think he's going to feel bad and maybe he'll make a change? I think what he's going to do, I think the grandfather is going to feel really sad that Ruby feels like this, and he's going to find a way to make her feel more important. That's my prediction. So I want you to think what your prediction is. And then tell me, what's your prediction? Great, let's read and find out. "Well," said Ruby, trying to think of a small, unimportant thing. "When it is the moon festival and we are each given half a moon cake, the boys always get the half with the yellow moon yolk." Said her grandfather, as if he was still waiting. "Is that so?" "Yes," continued Ruby, "and when it is the lantern festival, the girls are given simple paper lanterns, but the boys have red lanterns in the shapes of goldfish, cockerels, and dragons." Ruby's grandfather chuckled. He'd never thought about it before. He could imagine how much Ruby would have liked a red lantern. Oh, so I can see that. I'm starting to think my prediction might come true. It sounds like he's starting to feel a little bad. And I can tell because he said he'd never thought about it before. He could imagine how much Ruby would have liked a red lantern, so he's thinking about maybe all the times he could have given her a red lantern or given her something that she would have enjoyed. "But most importantly," said Ruby, staring hard at her red shoes, "the boys will get to go to university, but the girls will be married." So Ruby is saying that it's really important. She wants to go to college. That's what university is. It's called college. Ruby wants to be really smart and grow up and go to college, but girls aren't allowed to do that. And it sounds like that makes her very upset. "Don't you want to be married?" asked her grandfather. "You know you are very lucky. A daughter of this house can marry any man." "I know, grandfather," said Ruby, "but I'd much rather go to university." Ruby's grandfather touched her hair. "Thank you for talking to me, Ruby," he said. "Go on with your lessons. Make the most of them while you can." So here might be a good time for us to check our prediction. So I predicted he was going to feel bad and make a change. And after reading the last few pages, I still think that something is going to happen. I still do think he is going to change something. So if you want to change your prediction now, you can. If you want to keep it the same, you can. So Ruby went on with her lessons. Some of the boys grew up and went away to university. Some stayed in the house and started families of their own. But when they grew up, all the girls were married and sent away to live in their husbands' homes. Ruby knew it would soon be her turn. In the ponds, Ruby could see the orange and white carp gulping for breath under a thin layer of ice. Here's a carp, it's a kind of fish. Ruby could see the orange and white carp gulping for breath under a thin layer of ice. It would soon be Chinese New Year. Ruby felt sure it would be her last one at home. On New Year's Day, Ruby put on red velvet shoes and tied red ribbons in her hair. Then she went to wish everyone a Happy New Year. She started with her married cousins, then worked her way up through the parents, aunts, and uncles. Each one gave her a red packet full of lucky money. Finally, she bowed before her grandfather. "Good luck and prosperity, grandfather," she said. "Good luck, little Ruby," replied her grandfather, and he handed her a very fat red packet. Ruby could feel the eyes of all her family on her as she opened her lucky red envelope. Can you guess what was in it? It wasn't money. It was something much better than that. So here's another really good time to predict. So let's predict what's in the envelope. I'll read this part one more time while we think of a prediction. Can you guess what was in it? It wasn't money. It was something much better than that. So what do you think is going to be in the envelope? Tell me, what do you think is going to be in the envelope? Should we read and find out? It was a letter from a university saying that they would be proud to accept Ruby as one of their very first female students. So, that's how Ruby got her wish. It's a true story. And how do I know this? Well, Ruby is my grandmother, and every day she still wears a little red. So, did your prediction come true? Mine came true. I thought the grandfather would feel bad and he might do something to help Ruby. And he did. He got her into a university so she could continue to learn. The end.